Welcome to a series of conferences on contemplative lifestyle. I am Father John Francis Sequeira, a Carmelite priest belonging to Karnataka Goa province in India. The theme of our conference today is In the Stillness of the King. The world today, the 21st century that we are living in, as Aldous Huxley so rightly said, is a world of noise. Physical noise, mental noise, and the noise of desire. Maybe we hold the history's record for all of them. No wonder, for all the resources of our almost miraculous science and technology have been thrown into the current assault against silence. In other words, humanity has become more and more addicted to noises of all kinds as a part of our ongoing civilization. But the positive side of the picture of our world is that we have come to realize this addiction that we are suffering from, and at least some partial remedial methods are on the way. We have therefore mushrooming meditation centers which provide varieties of meditation such as Zen, Yoga, Koan, Vipassana, Transcendental meditations. There are retreats and natural resorts that provide alternative techniques and therapies. It is also heartening to see that people take time to detox themselves quite frequently today than before. However, when we speak about contemplative prayer and the need of inner silence, we are not talking about this type of stillness at all. These quick fixes mechanisms of silence may help for a while to experience an amount of quietude. However, contemplative stillness that we want to attain both as a means for contemplation and as a result of contemplation are far from being closer to these skin deep therapies. To understand inner stillness, therefore, one requires to go deeper into the very nature of our being and see through the pages of the scriptures and the mystical history to find an adequate answer to contemplative stillness. Contemplation, as we have already defined, is a loving attentiveness to God. It is an intimate relationship between the person of God on one hand and the human person involved in a deeper relationship with God on the other. The Holy Scriptures tell us that our God is a God who speaks, for speaking is the expression of a sincere relationship. In other words, God is equal to He speaks. If He stops speaking, then it is unbearable and unthinkable to human beings. For when God has stopped speaking and He is utterly silent, that is a contradiction in itself. For it simply means He is absent. Hence, we see in the Psalms, the psalmist prays to God to speak, not to be silent. To Thee, O Lord, I call, my rock. Be not deaf to me, lest if Thou be silent to me, I become like those who go down to the pit. Psalm 28 verse 1. Again we hear, Thou hast seen, O Lord, be not be silent. O Lord, be not far from me. Psalm 35:2. O God, do not keep silent. Do not hold thy peace or be still, O God. Psalm 83:1. However, it is a mystery to note that the very speaking God takes place in silence. The silence of God issues from His perfection and holiness. God is love, and silence is the perfect communication of the Father and His Son through the gift of the Holy Spirit. Love needs no language, but it does express itself in perfect silence. God needs no multiplicity and variety to express His eternal continuity in love. He loves through His Word, and He speaks through His Word. However, His silence is not broken by speaking His Word. His Word issues forth eternally in silence. If God's unconditional love and His Word is manifested in silence, human heart and mind requires the same silent mind and heart to listen to it and understand His love and His Word. That makes inner silence a necessary requirement to listen to Him and go deeper in His love, which we call contemplation. When we make this silence a habitual virtue of our everyday living, then we attain inner silence, and contemplation becomes a way of life for us. Maybe for just academic purpose. Human science or human silence, I would love to see on 3 different levels. Number 1, an immediate requirement for mental prayer, or what we call active recollection. Second, a habitual silencing of our thoughts and emotions through a rigorous disciplined life. And 3, silencing of all our faculties through the mediation of both active and passive contemplation. Contemplative lifestyle demands the attainment of all 3 levels. Let me explain. The first level of silence is that silence as an immediate requirement for mental prayer, or what we call active recollection. This may not require much explanation because most of us are already doing it in one way or the other. Whenever we go for personal prayer, we are told to take an easy posture, empty our thoughts, and in order to do that, focus on our breathing or follow any awareness method. Or even as the centering prayer would put it, keep one's focus on a mantra like Maranatha and repeat it all through till you fall completely silent. It is true that it can give you a certain amount of momentary stillness, although it is not easy to control the mind, as we all know. However, Saint Teresa of Avila would console us saying that prayer is not thinking much, but loving much. She would advise, when you pray, allow your heart to be elevated to God in love by being in His presence. The mind, which is like a monkey, although not satisfied with anything, and therefore accustomed to jump from one tree to another, eventually would settle down with the food coming from the Lord alone. It is important, however, that we focus more on the second and third level of stillness. Human mind as it stands today suffers from three types of addictions, namely repetitive and useless thinking, past and future thinking, and negative thinking. Addiction, as we know, is an intense form of habit over which we have lost our control. The pseudo-ideologies, anxieties and fears, and negativities that are resulting from these addictions not only destroy mental equilibrium and peace, they also destroy about 80 to 90% of the vital energy needed for the harmonious growth of the person. Added to that, every negative thought and the emotional anxieties that accompany them destroy the human health completely. On the physical and emotional level, while they do so much damage, on the level of the spiritual, they dim the divinity within you, making you practically impossible to grow in faith. When intellect is dimmed, the theological virtue of faith that accompanies the mind is made dysfunctional, thereby putting the physical, emotional, and spiritual health of the person in array. A healthy mind in a healthy body is the most important requirement of spiritual growth according to Saint Teresa. Therefore, it is important to take note of the precautions given by the mystics and spiritual giants to overcome these anomalies. It is important to keep one's mind and emotions under one's control in order to grow in inner stillness. St. John of the Cross advice to a young religious is worth mentioning here. This is what he says. You should live in the monastery as though no one else were in it. And thus, you should never, by word or by thought, meddle in things that happen in the community, nor with individuals in it, desiring not to notice their good or bad qualities or their conduct. And in order to preserve the tranquility of your soul, I repeat, and in order to preserve the tranquility of their soul, even if the whole world crumbles, you should not desire to advert to these things or interfere. Remembering Lot's wife was changed into hard stone because she turned her head to look at those who, in the midst of much clamor and noise, were perishing. Then John of the Cross says, you should practice this with great fortitude, for you will thereby free yourself from many sins and imperfections, and guard the tranquility and quietude of your soul with much profit before God and others. However, the most important requirement in a contemplative pursuit is the capacity to silence all our faculties, both exterior and interior, so that God can take full control of our being, whereby we are able to listen to Him whispering to our hearts in loving silence and pouring into us the fullness of His grace. St. John of the Cross so beautifully puts it in the form of a poem when he sings, one dark night, fired with love's urgent longings, oh, sheer grace, I went out unseen, my house being now still. John of the Cross would say that silencing the soul is both the result of love's urgent longings on one hand and to the gift of his sheer grace on the other. Soul's desire to be united with God in love longs for that silence on one hand, and the desire of God to transform the soul in the likeness of himself fills the soul in his own stillness on the other. In the spiritual canticle, stanza 35, St. John would sing this way. She lived in solitude, and now in solitude has built her nest. And in solitude he guides her. He alone also bears in solitude the wound of love. For John of the Cross, the desire to live in solitude and silence, away from all worldly afflictions and fatigues, is a means to find and rejoice in the experience of the love of the beloved. Here, one wishes to live in the solitude, making solitude and silence alone one's home, away from all satisfactions, comforts, and support of the creatures, in order to reach the companionship and the union with the beloved. It is in this solitude alone she encounters the beloved in the state of union, where she is guided and moved to the divine things. That is, elevating her intellect to divine understanding, filling her memory with the divine knowledge, and moving her will freely to the love of her beloved God. All he does for her because he is wounded by the love that is shown by the soul, desiring to live to him and him alone in total solitude and silence. We will come to this theme in a greater detail when we speak about the night of senses and of the spirit in a later conference. Maybe to put it in a layman's language, the desire of the heart is always to be united with God in love. In order to reach that end, the human person deliberately moves away from all pleasures, both of the external faculties and the spiritual faculties, making God alone the end purpose of one's life, and the pleasures of God alone as his or her home. On the part of God, he is fascinating lover, seeing the person, making God alone the end of everything. He comes to the aid of the person and fills his heart with the fullness of his love, thereby filling the heart of the person in total solitude and stillness of love. That was perhaps the experience of the prophet Elijah on Mount Horeb, when he encountered God in the stillness of that thin breeze after all his pain and struggle. I'm sure it was the experience of Moses on Mount Sinai, being with him for 40 days and 40 nights. It was the experience of thousands of mystics and saints down the centuries, deep in their solitude and mystical encounters. Today, my dear friends, we have chosen to sit on the shoulders of these mystics and saints and make that experience our own. Can our hearts be able to churn within us to the experience of this inner stillness in order to attain that deep experience of his divine love? May I suggest to you some practical guidelines? Number one, begin your day by thanking God for the blessings he has showered upon you. Enumerate small things and say, thank you, Lord. That will create a habit of positive thinking. Second, whenever you are hurt or in pain or suffering that come on your way, think of the less fortunate than you. That would bring a smile on your face. Number 3, please avoid the company of negative people and gossip mongers. Please don't be one among them. Number 4, never interfere in the affairs of the others. Allow people to be by themselves. Remember, no one does evil knowingly. Number 5, please read the Gospel of the day and build your day basing on that Gospel. We have spoken about it in Lectio Divina. Number 6, finally, learn to spend every day a quality time before the Lord, practicing His loving stillness. Listen in love. Don't talk. May God, who has called each one of us to participate in this divine banquet of love, help us in our pursuit. God bless you all.